The incident and Earth's response. The Galactic Conclave had maintained peace among the stars for over 3 millennia. 217 sentient species shared technology, culture, and commerce across thousands of worlds. The Conclave's archives recorded countless diplomatic incidents, trade disputes, and even the occasional border skirmish, all resolved through established protocols and measured responses. None of them had prepared the galaxy for humanity. First contact with Earth had occurred just 73 standard cycles ago, barely an eye blink in cosmic terms. Humans had been welcomed cautiously but warmly into the interstellar community. Their technology was unremarkable, their military presence minimal, their colonies few. What they lacked in physical prowess, they seemed to compensate for with adaptability and diplomatic skill. The Vriscan hegemony, like many established powers, had initially dismissed them as a minor species, destined to remain on the periphery of galactic affairs. That had been their first mistake. Grand Overseer Thalvorix of the Vriscan hegemony stood before the curved viewport of his command chamber, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. The holographic displays surrounding him showed real-time feeds from across the hegemony's 17 core worlds. Still no response from the humans, he asked, his voice deceptively calm. His chief diplomat, Nexala, shifted uncomfortably. None, Grand Overseer. We've transmitted 16 formal apologies through standard diplomatic channels. We've offered reparations according to conclave guidelines. We've even proposed a state funeral with full military honors. And yet their ships continue to arrive, Thalvorix observed. On each display, the same scene repeated. Human vessels taking position in high orbit around Vriscan worlds. They made no aggressive moves. They issued no demands. They simply watched. It was an accident, Nexala said, her voice tinged with frustration. Ambassador Chen was never meant to be in the secure zone during the Unification Day celebrations. The security drones followed standard protocols for an unauthorized presence. By the time they recognized her diplomatic credentials. I'm aware of what happened, Thalvorix interrupted, his epidermal scales darkening with stress. The question is not what occurred, but what happens next. The communications officer's voice cut through the tense silence. Grand Overseer, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast simultaneously to every Vriscan world and colony. Put it through, Thalvorix ordered. The central holographic display shifted, revealing the face of a human female. Her expression was neither angry nor threatening, merely resolute. I am Admiral Helena Reyes of the Earth Defense Force, she said, her voice calm and measured. 3 standard weeks ago, Ambassador Mei Chen was killed on Vriska Prime while conducting her diplomatic duties under the protection of interstellar law. The Vriscan hegemony has characterized this as an accident and offered compensation according to conclave guidelines. She paused, her gaze seeming to pierce directly through the screen. What the hegemony fails to understand is that humans do not measure the value of a life in credits or concessions. For us, a single human life cannot be compensated for. It cannot be replaced. It cannot be forgotten. Thalvorix felt his secondary heart begin to race. This was not following any diplomatic script he recognized. We are not here to threaten or to punish, Admiral Rice continued. We are here to bear witness. Every human ship now in orbit around your worlds carries a single mission: to observe, to remember, to ensure that Mei Chen's death is neither minimized nor dismissed. The display split to show hundreds of human vessels in formation. Each bore the same insignia, a stylized human face, Ambassador Chen's face, against a field of stars. We will remain in position until the truth is acknowledged. Not your version, not our version, but the complete and unaltered truth. When that occurs, we will depart as peacefully as we arrived. The transmission ended, leaving the command chamber in stunned silence. That's it. Next, Sala finally asked. No demands, no ultimatums, no threats of retribution. Thalvorix turned away from the viewport, his outer scales now ashen gray. Contact our intelligence division. I want to know what they're not telling us." 3 days later, the situation had only grown more tense. Human ships continued to arrive, not just military vessels, but civilian craft as well. Trade vessels, research ships, even private yachts. They took no hostile action. They simply positioned themselves in orbit around Friskin worlds and stations. The Grand Conclave had convened an emergency session to address the developing crisis. Representatives from all major powers gathered in the ancient chamber on neutral Conclave Prime. "The humans' response defies all precedent," argued the Tellarite ambassador, his crystalline appendages glittering with agitation. "No ultimatums, no demands for territory or resources, merely this presence." "It is psychological warfare," countered the Morrigan representative, her feathered crest raised in alarm. "They seek to destabilize the hegemony through fear and uncertainty." The Conclave eldest, a Phyrexian whose age was measured in centuries, raised a gnarled hand for silence. "The human ambassador has arrived." All eyes turned as a single human entered the chamber. Not a high-ranking diplomat flanked by advisors, not a military officer in dress uniform, but a middle-aged man in simple civilian attire. "Ambassador Wei," the eldest acknowledged. "The Conclave recognizes Earth." James Wei nodded respectfully. "I thank the Conclave for this opportunity to speak. Perhaps you could explain your people's unprecedented response to what was clearly an unfortunate accident," the Vriscan representative suggested, not quite managing to keep the edge from his voice. Wei's expression remained neutral. "My government has reviewed the hegemony's account of events and finds certain details inconsistent." A murmur ran through the chamber. Ambassador Chen's final transmission to Earth included data she had been collecting on Vriska Prime. Data regarding certain activities that violate multiple Conclave treaties. The Vriscan representative bristled. "This is outrageous. You accuse us of." "I accuse you of nothing," Wei interrupted calmly. "I merely state facts." Ambassador Chen discovered evidence of illegal genetic experimentation on non-sentient species from protected worlds. She documented facilities where forbidden bioweapons research was being conducted, and she recorded conversations with hegemony officials who spoke openly about these violations. Silence fell over the chamber. "This is why our ships watch, not to threaten, not to intimidate, but to ensure that the truth, the complete truth, cannot be buried," along with Ambassador Chen. The Conclave eldest leaned forward. "These are serious allegations, Ambassador Wei. Do you possess evidence to support them?" "We do," Wei confirmed, "but we will not share it at this time." The Vriscan hegemony knows what Ambassador Chen discovered. They know why security drones were instructed to eliminate an intruder in a supposedly public area during their unification celebrations. He turned to face the Vriscan representative directly. "We are waiting, Representative Krell, waiting for your government to acknowledge what truly happened. Until then, we will continue our vigil." As the conclave session adjourned in disarray, the Phyrexian eldest approached Ambassador Y privately. "Your approach is unusual, Ambassador," the ancient being observed. "Most species would seek retribution, demand concessions, or even resort to military action." Wei smiled faintly. "Humans understand something that perhaps other species do not, eldest. The most powerful force in the universe isn't violence or wealth or even technology. It's truth. And truth requires only patience and witness to prevail." On Vriska Prime, Grand Overseer Thal Vorex received the report from his intelligence chief with growing horror. "The humans know everything," he demanded. "Everything, Grand Overseer," confirmed the intelligence officer. "Ambassador Chen accessed our secure networks through a vulnerability we hadn't detected. The data she transmitted to Earth included detailed information on all 17 classified research facilities, including the Bioweapons Division. And now their ships watch us," Thal Vorex murmured. "No threats, no demands, just silent witnesses ensuring we cannot escape the consequences." He moved to the viewport, staring up at the stars where hundreds of human vessels maintained their vigilant orbit. "They are more dangerous than we imagined," he said softly, "not because of their weapons or their numbers, but because they understand the power of simply watching, waiting, knowing." The intelligence chief hesitated. The Hegemony Council is divided on how to respond. Some advocate coming clean to the conclave. Others suggest more aggressive options. Valvorex's scales paled. "No, the humans have shown remarkable restraint thus far. I fear what might happen if that restraint were tested." As darkness fell across Vriska Prime, the human ships in orbit activated external illumination systems simultaneously, creating a constellation that formed the face of Ambassador Maichen, visible from the planet's surface. A message to those below: we have not forgotten. We are still watching, and we will wait as long as necessary for truth to prevail. The Reckoning and Revelation. Grand Marshal Kivnorax of the Vriskan Defense Force stood before the Hegemony High Council, his posture rigid with military discipline despite the chaos unfolding around him. "We cannot tolerate this human encirclement any longer," shouted Councillor Drez, slamming a clawed hand against the ancient stone table. 3 standard months they have maintained their position. Trade has collapsed. Our citizens grow restless. The other conclave powers begin to question our authority. "What would you have us do, Councillor?" Kivnorax asked calmly. "Engage them militarily. Their vessels outnumber ours 3-1. They've taken no hostile action," Councillor Vex pointed out, her voice measured. "Their presence is provocative, certainly, but technically they remain in international space." Valvorex, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "The humans have given us only one condition for their departure: the truth." "Absurd," Drez hissed. "We cannot admit to violations of conclave treaties. The penalties would cripple our economy for generations. The hegemony would lose its seat on the Security Council." Kivnorax's expression darkened. "Then perhaps we should consider whether we deserve that seat, Councillor." A stunned silence fell over the chamber. "Grand Marshal," Valvorex said carefully, "choose your next words with extreme care." "I have served the hegemony for 63 cycles," Kivnorax replied. "I have led our forces in 3 border conflicts. I have sworn to protect our people and our interests." He paused, scanning the room. "But I did not swear to protect lies." He activated a holographic projector, displaying security footage from the day of Ambassador Chen's death. The footage clearly showed the ambassador being deliberately herded into a restricted area by security personnel, followed by drones firing without warning or identification protocols. "This was no accident," Kivnorax stated flatly. "This was an assassination, ordered by elements within our own government to silence a diplomat who had discovered our treaty violations." The council erupted in shouting and denials. Valvorex raised all 4 arms for silence. "Even if what you say is true, Grand Marshal, revealing this would devastate the hegemony's position in the galaxy. Millions of our citizens would suffer the consequences." Kivnorax nodded grimly. "Yes, but what is the alternative? The humans will not leave. Their patience appears unlimited. And each day they remain, more conclave members begin to ask questions, conduct their own investigations." He gestured to another display showing various news feeds from across the galaxy. The human blockade, as it was now being called, despite its non-violent nature, had become the dominant story throughout conclave space. "The truth will emerge eventually," Kivnorax concluded. "We can control how that happens, or we can let it destroy us completely." 10 hours later, a transmission went out from Vriska Prime to every human vessel in orbit around hegemony worlds. Grand Overseer Valvorex himself delivered the message, his scales the ash-gray color of formal contrition. "People of Earth," he began, "I speak today to acknowledge a great wrong committed by the Vriskan hegemony against your people and against the principles of the Galactic Conclave." He proceeded to detail, without omission or euphemism, The deliberate assassination of Ambassador Chen after she discovered illegal bioweapons research. He named the officials responsible, including 3 members of the High Council. He provided evidence of the violations and outlined the hegemony's plans to dismantle all prohibited research facilities. We offer no excuses, Vorex concluded. Only the truth you have so patiently waited for, and our commitment to face whatever justice the conclave deems appropriate. The transmission ended. Throughout the hegemony, citizens watched their skies, waiting for the human response. It came within the hour. Without fanfare or ceremony, the human vessels began to power up their engines. One by one, they broke orbit and disappeared into FTL transit, leaving Vriskin space as silently as they had arrived. All except one. A single diplomatic shuttle requested permission to land at the capital. Aboard was Admiral Helena Reyes, the same officer who had delivered humanity's initial message months earlier. In the Grand Overseer's private chambers, Vorex received the human with formal courtesy. "Your people are departing," he observed. "Does this mean our acknowledgement has been accepted?" Admiral Reyes nodded once. "Truth was all we required, Grand Overseer. You have provided it." "And what happens now?" Vorex asked. "The conclave will impose severe sanctions. Those responsible for the ambassador's death will face prosecution. The hegemony may not survive in its current form. That is for the conclave to decide," Reyes replied. "Earth will neither advocate for nor against leniency. Justice must take its course." Vorex studied the human carefully. "Your approach confounds us still, Admiral. Your species had the power to demand reparations, territory, technology. Yet you asked only for truth." Reyes smiled faintly. "Perhaps that reveals something about what humans truly value, Grand Overseer." "Indeed." Vorex hesitated, then continued. "There is something I must know. If we had refused to acknowledge the truth, if we had maintained our deception, or worse, taken hostile action against your vessels, what would humanity's response have been?" Admiral Reyes's expression remained neutral, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "We prefer not to speculate on hypotheticals, Grand Overseer. Let us be grateful that your wisdom prevailed." 3 months later, the Galactic Conclave convened for its annual assembly. The proceedings had been dominated by the aftermath of what was now being called the Vriskin Incident. Sanctions had been imposed. The responsible officials had been tried and convicted. The hegemony, while diminished in status, had been permitted to remain within the conclave under probationary terms. The most significant development, however, was the unprecedented attention now focused on humanity. The conclave eldest addressed the chamber as the final session began. "We turn now to the matter of Earth's status within the conclave. In light of recent events, several member species have proposed elevating humanity to full council status, despite their relatively recent arrival on the galactic stage." Murmurs spread throughout the chamber. Such an elevation normally required centuries of proven diplomatic engagement. "Before we vote," the eldest continued, "the human representative has requested to address the assembly." Ambassador James Way approached the central podium. Unlike previous sessions, he was not alone. Behind him stood a woman of middle years, familiar to all present from the broadcasts that had become ubiquitous during the crisis. "Honored representatives," Y began, "Earth is grateful for the consideration shown by this proposal. However, we must respectfully decline the nomination for council status at this time." Surprised exclamations echoed through the chamber. "Our interaction with the Vriskin hegemony has demonstrated that there remains much for humanity to learn about the complexities of galactic diplomacy. We believe we can better serve the conclave by continuing in our current observer capacity." The Tellarate ambassador raised a crystalline appendage. "Yet your handling of the crisis demonstrated wisdom and restraint beyond many established powers. You sought truth and justice without retribution or self-interest." Way smiled. "We sought what any member of the conclave should seek, adherence to shared principles and respect for the dignity of all sentient life."